ongoing, so I don't know that it needs to be called out.
Yeah, well, at that point, it just becomes part of operations,
Right,
just like, we plow the roads, we don't, it just
right.
becomes
So,
another.
yeah,
Okay.
I think, we can lose that language on the other items for consistency.
mhm.
Got it.
Okay. Anything else on that one? Objective 2? Okay. Objective 3? Yeah, there's definitely no timeline yet for the land management plan. So there is, we're getting close for Wiley Nickerson, I think. Okay, no thoughts?
Do we need to explain what a land management plan is? Since we have 4 items there on their item G. Should that be in our listing of definitions or whatever we need to call it?
I don't know. I'm too involved to
Mhm.
answer that one. So do you think if you were reading this, you would need to know what that meant?
Well, yeah, what is a land management plan?
So it's assessing the site and determining what kinds of maintenance needs to be done, short term, long term. If there's restoration that needs to be done, and putting that into an overall plan and timeline, basically.
I think in
And-
common vernacular, land management plan would be relatively understood. The details, if you get to the next step when you're doing it, the details of all of what you just said, Karen, would be important. But I don't
Right.
think it needs to go in the glossary.
It's basically care and maintenance of each of these areas. And it's Nickerson Conservation Area should be in there. We're doing Nickerson and Wiley as one entity.
So
Basically.
should it go with Wiley or separate?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're treating it as since it's connected as one piece. And basically anytime Open Space Committee talks about Wiley, we're talking about both. So I might say Wiley Park and I'd capitalize the P.
Yep.
And then maybe a slash and say Nickerson Conservation Area.
Okay.
And it's not Higgins Pond. It's Higgins Conservation Area.
Okay.
Actually, all of those need a little more detail in the names.
Okay. What? So
I'll email that after the meeting.
okay.
Are we on
She's
objective 4?
I was gonna say, are we
No,
on open
yeah.
space yet?
Yeah, objective 4.
Okay. Item A. I just think we got a little repetition there in terms of ownership of assets and parcels. It's done
Oh,
twice.
you're right. Yep, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sources. Yep. C. We've kind of already done that. That there is a list and there is criteria for that. So, it's something we look at from time to time in open space, but we've had that in place for a while now.
What would you, given that the criteria exists, so this just says to
Mhm.
prioritize parcels, is that something
Yeah.
that's ongoing though? Do you do that
Yeah,
on a
I
regular
would change that to-
basis?
Yeah, I would change that to ongoing.
Okay.
But there's only a limited number of undeveloped properties in town, so
Yeah. Is it better though to mention it, to call it out, or? I don't. As, even if limited?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And there is always the potential to add already developed properties in areas needed for salt marsh recession and migration. So yeah.
Would you maybe want to combine C and D? D is the secure parcels and then to say based on the identified priorities.
Well, they're really separate actions. I would leave them separate.
Okay.
And really all of those actions are ongoing. All 4 of them. I mean, the open space and rec plan will eventually have a end date. But for the moment, it's all ongoing. Okay, objective 5.
I did send something out on objective 5. Based on our conversations at the last meeting. I did raise the conversations we had here. I did raise it at the Climate Action Committee meeting, and I did get some language that I did send around.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
I don't know if that fits or not. What we were looking for.
Develop a climate action plan. Okay. So this one suggests that there is a climate action plan. So I just want to make sure that like the tense kind of like, does it exist and it's being implemented, or does it need?
Well, the committee did draft a climate action plan
Okay.
and sent it to this group.
Mhm.
I don't know if you consider that to be a climate action plan, Karen.
Was that a final action plan? I
No,
thought that was
no.
still a work in progress.
It's still a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I did here is just take some language that reflected the supporting the statewide goal of achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050. and reducing the town's vulnerability to the consequences of climate change.
Well, I think as far as an action item, does it make sense that, the action item, first one would be complete the
Exactly.
climate action plan,
Mhm.
but it would be good. And then there are going to be actions in that plan.
Exactly.
I guess that's the part, some of these plans aren't done yet. So I think it's good to have the action, complete the plan, but then it'd be good if we could, if we already know what the likely priorities are, the top, 3, 5, whatever, to get something into this plan now, just so that there's a little more, substance to it. And that might be something to go back to your group, like, which I think in the draft here, under letter A, what do we have? Development, implement priority action items. So I mean, we could reword that to say, complete action plan, climate plan, and then bullet points of what we think or what your group thinks are the likely specific action items, which may be doing a technical analysis
Right.
like you listed here.
Mhm.
That might be a way to integrate these things.
Yeah, I think the thing that they were focused on was getting the language and support the statewide goals of achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050.
Yeah, well, I think that could fit in there as the general. So if we did complete action plan with the goal, your language, and then have some bullet point, if there are specific tasks in that your group would recommend, like these are the things that are we had,
Should go into a climate action plan?
no, that, well, let me back up. I'm assuming, does the climate action plan have actions in it, tasks in it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So if your group has recommendations for like what does it foresee in the next 5 years as the top thing, or the order of operations, what things need to happen first, or what are the most priority? If you have that list of recommendations, I think that could go under this
This objective.
as a way to just, that way there's a little more substance to it. So we just don't have one line that says climate action plan, just give some more, give some more,
Okay,
Yeah, make sure that the 3 bullets that we have there, so maybe it's not developed because maybe they're already developed, but implement priority actions as outlined in the climate action plan, including, and then whatever your committee, right? We can
yeah,
make
well, yeah, I
sure.
think what you have works if it seems important to have this other language, I think that can be added to what you already
Right.
have.
Right, that's
Did I
what
just say what you just said?
yes, yes,
Sorry.
you did. We're in agreement. Right, you got it.
I got
Do we
it, I got it.
confuse you?
Mhm, no, no.
All right,
Yeah, but I'm wondering about the second bullet point there, plans to address sea level rise, high coastal damage areas, including design and permitting. Would that be zoning level stuff, or is that basically repeating what the Conservation Commission is working on and analyzing and implementing the Cape Cod Commission coastal model bylaws?
Yeah, I think that might be a little too vague because it could encompass all those different things. That's what I was saying. If there were specific things in your plan, like we need to do a technical analysis on something, like in order to have baseline data to do sea level rise and whatever it might be, that would be like the bullet points.
Right. The sea level rise did not come from the Climate Action Committee. I don't know where we got that from.
Because I think the second bullet point, like Karen said, is gonna be different groups are gonna be doing that,
Right.
coming at it from different angles, zoning, land use, conservation. Like I said, I don't mean to keep repeating myself. I just think like if there are
Mhm.
specific actions in your plan that are forthcoming, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Because that also helps with coordinating it with, staff responsibilities. So if those action items, if it's apparent that's gonna need a staff support, to do it or not, then we can identify that or not,
And-
or if
and I'll-
something the committee can do, that's fine too, but
And also whether it's going to require coordination with other committees or
Ex-
boards.
Exactly. I was gonna say, this is a really good example of how this plan can be used to bring kind of disparate, not disparate, but different parties together who are working on similar projects.
Yeah, so maybe we'll call it multimodal.
Hmm.
Or something.
Yep.
Yeah, so Roy, are you at the point with the climate action plan that you do have some action steps that we could?
I'll have
Slide
to
in
ask
here,
them, I have to say this, that as of July 30th, I'm stepping down from the Climate Action Committee. I mean, I'll still get them to work on this. Because they're really interested,
So if they're not ready now, this is supposed to be a living document and we can come back and update it
Mhm.
Yep.
once that's been done.
Yeah, I'll try and encourage them to be ready.
But yeah, but I'm thinking really that second bullet point could get deleted.
The sea level rise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's already addressed in C and D
Okay.
and actually B, C, and D.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
So we would put finalize Eastham Climate Action Plan with your keep the rest of your language, but just add finalize climate action plan and implement priority actions. If we end up getting any actions to bullet point, we can add those in there. If not, they get added later on.
But we could add the language that talks about supporting statewide
Yes.
net
Yeah.
zero
Yep.
goals by 2050.
Yeah, I think that's an important one.
Yeah, I think that works, and that blends all that together, and it makes it cross references it to the state
Right.
goals.
Yeah, and because there's the state goals, that probably indicates there might be funding opportunities with that.
That's why I thought we should just get the state goals in there.
All right. And the Cape Cod Commission coastal model bylaws, is that going to be the floodplain and the coastal resiliency? Is that what that refers to specifically?
Yes.
So the floodplain draft stuff, the floodplain stuff, they're looking at the final set the final draft next week. I have a preview of that Hillary sent along today, so definitely working on it. But it does call out the coastal resiliency model bylaw in particular, the floodplain stuff. So okay. So are we going to say this is all ongoing for a timeline?
Yeah, I mean, is there a date for finalizing the climate action plan?
I can ask them.
Okay. I mean, sometimes it's, if there is one, it's nice to include it. It just gives you a goal.
Mhm.
And it can be changed, right?
Right,
I mean, you should go
exactly.
back and say like, for X, Y, and Z reasons, we're not gonna complete this until,
Mhm.
next year sometime, whatever it is, but it just is a starting point as a
Right.
goal. Yep.
Okay. Looks like goal 2.
I just have a suggestion in the goal.
Mhm.
Um, it says the emphasis is on land use and infrastructure development. But as it relates to housing, there's also housing programs and new housing development. That the new housing development can be part of land use and infrastructure, but the housing programs are really not land use or infrastructure. And some of them are listed as you've in the objective about housing that you.
I was
pulled
just
in
gonna
from
ask
housing.
that, is that covered in that
It is.
objective?
So, but I think the overall goal needs to reflect that it's not just land use and infrastructure development, but it's also programs that support housing.
Sustainable land use, infrastructure development and programs?
Something like that.
Okay.
Someone with more eloquent words than mine can, but I think the word programs needs to be in there.
Okay.
Because that's different than land use and infrastructure.
Got it. Thank you.
On go, item B in goal 2. The timeline is different.
Yeah.
And it is in goal 1, item B,
Yep.
same language. So I don't know what timeline we want to agree upon.
I think the timelines are just gonna have to kind of be at the end of this when we got everything set
Mhm.
and go through it again and
Pick the most
yeah.
doable one. Yeah.
Anything on objective 1, or should we move on to 2?
2, I heard it too.
2?
not to
Yeah.
rush anybody, but nope,
Yeah,
we can come back to.
no timelines on objective 2. You think there might be timelines when that could start, given that it relies on the water project? I mean, the wastewater project? That just couldn't be tied into those timelines?
Yeah,
Or is it better-
I haven't really paid much attention to the timelines because figured get the actions down pat and squared
Mhm.
away, and then this needs to go through the mill again and tighten up
Right.
so like all these timelines are just guesses and placeholders at this time, and some of them I didn't even bother to fill in because
Mhm.
yet.
Right, but some of them are predicated on certain other actions within the plan. So does it make sense to call back to that? Because tea time is obviously reliant on the wastewater plan and implementation. Or just to leave it as it is.
Well, when we start talking about the timelines, I think
Mhm.
absolutely, we'll have to figure that out and make sure,
Yeah.
like to Roy's point, that there's internal consistency in the plan.
Mhm. Yeah, because this is something that people are definitely going to be interested in the
Mhm.
strategic plan, maybe more than some of the other things.
Yep, I agree.
I think it makes sense to get agreement on all the goals, objectives and actions, and then go
Mhm.
back and put in all the timelines.
Yeah, that's kind of where I think we were thinking if
Yeah.
we can get this right, which is
Mhm.
taking a few steps already, but we'll get there.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking that in the action, we might perhaps want to add some language that it's dependent on other steps, certain other steps happening first, which are not in the same objective line. It's in a
Mhm.
different set of goals.
Or is that in the more detailed plan?
Mhm. Probably in the more detailed, but
But you
It-
put
it-
in link, couldn't you put in a link?
Well, I think there are
Yeah.
lots of parts of these that are interwoven. And if you try to call out all the links.
No,
it's-
not all. But like Karen said, this one has got everybody's attention, but it's hooked into the wastewater. So under timeline, you'd have to put in, if you connect it to the wastewater.
What has to be connected to the wastewater by the end, but not necessarily in some of the beginning steps.
I'm just saying that if we hook it to the wastewater, I'm not saying in the final plan, I'm just saying as a link. No, the tea time is developed it's dependent upon the wastewater plan. So the
Not necessarily.
okay, that's from my understanding.
well, otherwise there needs to be a different plan for wastewater at tea time. But my understanding is it was going to be linked into the overall wastewater plan.
I think that's a strong preference, but if something happened, it would be possible to develop tea time with its own independent wastewater. Make it much more expensive project and not necessarily feasible, but it's conceivable.
True.
I mean, it's not a desirable outcome, but it is a potential.
It's just right now, it's just hanging.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right. And just noting that a lot of the other tie-ins seem to be in the same goal or objective, or and this one is separate from more separate from some of the others. Anyway, we can move on.
Let's think, yeah, well. Yeah, maybe just take back to think about how to make clear those linkages. And I'm not sure right this second, but
Because to me, a lot of the other ones seem to be very straightforward, and this
Yeah.
one not
this is a
so
lot,
much.
yeah,
Yeah,
a lot buried in this, but I agree.
objective 3, very short.
I will have some bullet points to add under that. Just waiting for some language from Jackie. Most likely,
Okay.
it's just gonna be pretty straightforward, like complete construction of this section of town, whatever it is, complete construction of water tower, second water tower. So there's 2 or 3 to flesh that out that will go in there.
Objective 4,
Just a couple of comments. I think, again, trying to keep this at a high level, I would combine F and G and just say, historic restoration occupancy of Massasoit. There's gonna be a phase 1 and phase 2, but that's at too detailed of a level.
It's
And-
really, F and G is really part of one.
Yeah.
One project.
Right,
It would just be historic restoration and occupancy of 580 Massasoit Road.
Yeah. Item J. I would add nonprofits. Private developers and nonprofits, the housing authority, private developers, nonprofits. Because there are some developers who are nonprofits and some nonprofits who do development work.
Where does that go?
Eastham Housing Authority, comma, nonprofit organizations. And private developers.
So. 8, little 8 there says continue to partner with nonprofit organizations.
That's in
Okay.
K. I'm looking at J.
Okay. Got it. I'm sorry.
That's,
I
okay.
understand.
It is a little repetitive.
I got it. Nope.
Yep.
Okay, sorry, got it.
K is kind of like how I was thinking about the climate action, how we could do the
Mhm.
climate action one.
Mhm.
There's specific things that come out of that, we can add it under that other one, under that earlier action.
Under K, little I, 3,
Mhm.
I's, development, new housing assistance and creation programs.
what does that mean?
Well, assistance is things like the down payment, closing cost assistance, the rental assistance program, the rehab assistance program. Those are assisting people who are trying to do something. Creation is how do we get programs that will actually create new housing? The other programs are targeted at housing that already exists.
Well, doesn't that already exist in develop and implement? New housing assistance programs, isn't that creation?
I
And
just see
Inherent
it,
in develop?
I see a difference in the noun of housing assistance programs and housing creation programs. I just think they're two slightly but important different things. Develop and implement are the verbs, but new housing assistance and creation programs. We think of it as creating new housing and supporting housing.
And that would come under the same item as opposed to a separate item for create new housing?
It could be a separate item. That would be fine. Either way is fine.
And V under that list ends with some missing words.
Yeah, I just realized that. No matter how many times you look at it, I think they should have been, it should have gone together.
The more you look at stuff, the less you see sometimes.
Yeah.
And particularly when you've done a great job of cutting and pasting things and it often is just like that little cursor doesn't go quite.
Yeah, so, sorry, I saw that, Karen, you're,
Which one? Oh,
V,
hmm?
it was
Five.
V, Roy, V,
Yeah,
K5.
five,
little,
Okay, 5 and 6
fi-
go together.
they go
Yeah, that's-
together,
okay,
and I must have
Yeah.
hit a return where I shouldn't have hit a return. That's all,
that's,
good,
that was one I was gonna raise, okay.
yep,
So I wasn't seeing things, so,
no. It's like repeating yourself in the same boat, you don't even see it.
well, have
So
you
this
had
is ki-
any experience with, Roman numeral 7? On the Cape?
Private developers on privately owned properties.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Need Carolyn to think for me. I can't,
Some private developers have been voluntarily adding affordable housing into developments that they do.
yeah, that's,
Okay.
well, that's all the ADUs.
Right.
That's, yeah.
Okay, got it.
I was trying to think if we had like a major,
Matt Cole has some affordable housing in some of his developments.
Yeah.
That are not public related
I mean,
developments.
are you asking just in Eastham have?
Yeah, no, just on the
Oh,
Cape.
yeah, yeah, no, there's a lot of examples on Cape. I was just trying to
Yeah.
think, I don't think we've had any yet, like
Other than ADUs, I
other than
don't.
ADUs in Eastham. Just trying to double check in my memory.
do you happen to know off the top of your head how many ADUs we're up to at this point?
We have permitted 24 and I'm actually in the process of trying to verify which ones have actually been completed that are actually up and running. So I know at least 12 of them are like up and running. A few more, we're trying to track down the status of the permitting and see where they are.
Mhm.
Is that in line with what you expected at this point, or?
I mean, I think it's good. I didn't really know what to expect when we redid the bylaw. We were just
Mhm.
hoping to get any of them. But now that it's up and running and these units are being created, I think it shows the bylaw, did what it did what it aimed to, streamline it, make it easier to get these units created. I think the next step is now we have to start making sure we are tracking them and making sure that the units are being, maintained for what they were, year-round rentals. And, so that's kind of phase 2.
And my only other comment, I think, is, again, when we combine 5 and 6, we talk about affordable and workforce housing. There's a big need for seasonal housing, which you can assume is part of the definition of workforce. Sometimes people think of it as two separate things. I mean, seasonal housing is related to workforce housing, so I don't know if you want to call that out separately or just leave that as the way it is okay, but in the housing production plan, we talk about the need for seasonal workforce also.
I think residents consider that two separate items.
I think so, Karen, so maybe
Call
make
it out.
5, the combination of 5 and 6 and make a new 6 that says, continue to identify opportunities for seasonal workforce development. Or something like that.
Rather than add it to affordable seasonal and
I would make it
workforce.
a separate,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because that's how people see it.
Mhm.
And
think so.
there's very different levels of support
And,
between the two,
and perhaps different land use issues
right?
in, that might end up relating to zoning and water and so forth.
Objective 5, we up to that? Could you remind us what District E is, Paul?
District E is the area. District E is the area right around Town Hall. So Town Hall, Superette, post office, the gas station, Buddha Bob's store. It's just a little small commercial district.
Okay,
Maybe that could go in the definitions.
Yeah, yep,
yeah.
mine District E, yep.
But will the form-based code only be for District E? Will it be for Northeastham?
Well, the way I was thinking is when we do, when we complete the Northeastham form-based code, the
Mhm.
next step would be then to see what parts, if any, are applicable to put on District E so that there's consistency.
Okay. So do we also want to add then in general form-based code? Besides just District E?
General being townwide?
No,
don't-
I'm sorry, Northeastham.
Ah.
What we've been going through the last 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I didn't put an action item for that.
It's up to you.
Just thinking it through. Well, I guess we kind of had this discussion at the other meeting. I didn't put it in there just because I figured it's tentatively scheduled to be done by May. So
Right.
I was kind of like, it's gonna be done by the time. But,
But this is a 5-year plan.
right, well, I guess, I'm not sure what you recommend.
Well, analyze and implement form-based code for zoning for District E.
Right.
So action A limits it to just District E as opposed to saying we're doing form-based code for Northeastham,
Right, but we're doing that already.
right?
But we have other
I
things
didn't,
in.
I guess,
But it won't be done until next year.
yeah, that's what I was thinking through. I didn't put it in there just because I was thinking,
We're-
So
we're
we'll
in the home
just
stretch. Right.
form-based
But-
codes,
yeah, but I guess we could. I guess it would make more sense to put an action on a form-based code for Northeastham. Because it won't be completed until a year from now.
Right,
And District E.
in District
I
E.
guess I was just thinking,
Right.
in my
And
mind, it's
in-
like
And you're
already
right,
done.
We're done.
Although I
But,
shouldn't
but we,
speak-
we do have other things in the plan that are already or already in progress. as
Right.
Yeah,
well.
no, I
So-
agree, yeah.
And if it's going in, it should be repeated in the Northeastham section. Which is,
We can do implement
would-
form-based code for Northeast Dam
Yeah,
commercial districts. And I think to keep and analyze and implement as appropriate for zoning district E.
well, I was thinking though that you might want to repeat the form-based code in goal 2, objective 2. To implement Northeast Ham Center Master Plan, which did include the form-based code. That's part of was
Yep.
part of the discussion.
Yeah, we can duplicate it there. I think that makes sense.
Where, I'm sorry, I was.
So we add the implement form-based code
Mhm.
for Northeast Dam under the objective 2, implement the Northeast Dam master plan,
Okay,
because it is part of the overall village center plan.
okay.
Anybody else have anything in that? Objective 5 or
Just,
ready
just
for
a
goal?
question, just a question. What is an affordable housing density?
Which letter?
D. D and E.
That would be, going back to those inclusionary zoning bylaw and the open space residential to put language in there that would provide, basically, if you are going to add affordable units, you would get additional, that you would be able to put more units overall than you would be normally. So it's a bonus for going above the minimum required.
Okay, goal 3. So A says 2024 under the action.
Yeah,
B, we are waiting for some further details from staff.
Okay, is it center on aging the correct language
No, that, I think that's
as
just,
opposed to
placeholder.
senior
that was just a
center or-
placeholder, yeah,
Okay,
this was gonna be,
council. Yeah.
yeah, I think council on aging items and like human services
Mhm.
related items. We're waiting for some more detail.
they've done a strategic plan as well. Is that what you're looking at or waiting for details from?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess I'm just a little confused about the difference between a objective 1 and objective 2. There seems to be a lot of overlap between the two.
Yeah. We also had in the last iteration a separate public health objective, which we folded into here for same thing, so.
I mean, maybe that's part of it is keep one focused on recreation and one on public health. I'm not necessarily saying you have to do
Mhm,
that. I was just
yeah.
trying to think of a way to make these not so repetitive.
Yeah, because we originally had talked about having public health as a separate,
Right.
and it kind of makes sense to have that remain as separate, even if there's some crossover.
So if objective one was create and support community public health programs, and then you keep those items in there and then switch the recreation ones down to objective 2.
Yeah, is broadband access recreation or public health? Or just I guess community programs and services? It,
Yes,
it,
so
it
there was
might be useful to kind of group within this things that are related to each other a little better.
well, the broadband and the which one is it? Where is it?
You go under 3.
I was gonna the where oh here it is. The broadband and the complete streets L.
Mhm.
We were trying to figure out where those items should live in the plan, because in the current plan we had a whole section that was specific to transportation,
Right,
kind of got cut out, but so then we didn't have a good place to put it, so we were kind of saying like objective 1 talks about infrastructure. Complete streets is about, multimodal
Mhm.
access. So we kind of figured our way into that one. And then the broadband was again, just kind of quality of life of providing, that service so people have access to internet. And so that was what we came up with.
yeah,
But I think complete streets and broadband both feel more like infrastructure.
Right. Well, that's why, because the objective as it's worded now has
That
infrastructure.
infrastructure, but if we
But-
go
but
back to having a public health.
broadband is public health
Hmm?
too, because broadband is a public health issue as well, because so much of there's telemedicine and access to services and state programs usually requires access to a computer.
Yeah. And, well, it can go in both places. That's one
Mhm.
answer. It
Yeah.
can go in both
Right.
places. And we could specify, broadband access in support of telehealth if we wanted.
Or you can put it
Or-
under 3.
Well, broadband is also important for economic development.
Right, but we could,
everything.
if we put it under the public health, we could say for telehealth and then leave it under the infrastructure as broader or not.
What if we kept? I go backwards a step for a second. So what if we kept objective 1 worded the way it is, but took out? I was gonna say took out the recreation components, took out D and E, maybe F, and then they would go down to objective 2 to clean that up. And then what we're left with is really the community, the specific community health ones, the streets, which is infrastructure, the broadband, which is health and infrastructure.
Well, like we've done in
Yeah.
a couple of other areas, we have the recreation plan and then the objectives under the recreation plan. So maybe we have one that says implement the recreation plan, and then here's some of the specific actions in the recreation plan. So kind of pull, like you're saying, Paul, pull all the recreation things together. Because that's the source of, or the primary source of the recreation.
Well, that could work under objective 2.
Mhm. Correct.
I'm just trying to find a way to salvage objective 1 so we can fit all that stuff in. But reorganize, but which I think if we take out the rec stuff and put it into action 2,
Mhm.
So then objective
Yes.
1 becomes community public health. So we're back to having a public health objective.
Yeah,
I don't think you have to say public health, it's community programs. Public health is one form of community health.
Okay,
Broadband's and another, I think they all would fit under that.
community,
but recreation is also public programs, so.
I mean, the other thing we could do is just make it all one objective.
Yeah, I think the objective they did really well.
Just
And-
get rid of objective 2. Like just make it objective 1.
Because if you read objective 1, just again with what's in the gray there, I think it's very all encompassing. Or mine's in gray because it's black and white. So.
I mean, it'll be a big objective, but it'll just be one. So the objectives,
It'll be a very big objective. And
community
maybe-
program
I'm speaking
services
for-
and infrastructure.
Yeah.
For clarity, I'm just wondering for clarity if it doesn't make sense to split it into 2. Because there are, I think public health is very different than recreation.
So we could just pull out, say, A, recreation, that's under objective 1 now, put it under 2. Just clean that up.
Mhm.
E specifically calls out recreation, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
E
And leaves
calls out
all the-
recreation.
yeah.
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then all the other stuff maybe could stay.
all right. Okay,
And this may be certain beyond the scope of what you wanted to consider, but the goal is quality of life for diversity of residents. Do we need any objectives that talk about diversification within the town?
Such as,
Well,
Yes.
we're losing our families. So some of the strategic things we're doing in terms of preschool care and free lunches are targeted specifically at trying to increase the numbers of families.
but
In-
I thought school enrollment was up. Wouldn't that indicate more families?
Not necessarily, school enrollment could also be up because of the school choice programs.
Okay, school enrollment from Eastham, I thought was up.
I don't know the answer to that. I just
Okay.
know that in general, the data in the housing production plan supports that we're continuing to age and not have a younger portion of the population.
Right, we are overwhelmingly older.
Yes, I fit that bill.
Oh,
Yes.
well,
so.
yeah,
does the-
I hit that bill last year, so.
Yeah, oh, good for you.
So does the
I'm-
goal not speak, is it not broad enough? As a lofty goal, kind of?
I think the goal is very good.
Okay,
I'm just wondering if there's an objective that talks about diversity. And I'm not, you may have already talked all about that, so I'm a latecomer to the discussion, so you can just ignore my comment entirely, in all seriousness. I'm not trying to insert stuff.
I don't think we did, though. To-
I mean, I think we have some kind of soft language in like, C ensure broad program participation, you know, ostensibly to get a diversity of, of, you know, community events, F for a range of participants. We don't have anything in here that's specifically like, what do we do to make sure we have, uh, you know,
A more diverse population.
yeah.
That's like part of like housing, right? Making sure there's,
Should be housing.
is there,
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Karen.
that's housing and community programs and things like that to encourage more families. Do we need to call that out specifically?
Is there a specific plan or is it some way or I don't know? I'm
I
just,
was thinking back to the community support. What's the right word for that, Paul? We
Package?
adopted- Yeah, package.
Well, actually, so I think the items that we're waiting on letter B, which some of them are like COA, but I know like, you know, Jackie was thinking that there are some, what she was calling them like, what is it? Human Services Program, I
Yes,
think. So I
yes.
think maybe we can wait to see what we get. There may be some specific things that would address that.
Okay, that's great.
All right, so we ended up, we're gonna keep both objectives, but move the rec items
to two.
into two.
Yep.
Two. Yeah,
And regional transportation and broadband stay in one.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So moving on to 3.
I think at G, there, it says including, and then there's nothing.
Yeah, that is in the ADA. The ADA plan we got when we did an audit. I'm waiting to see if, I was thinking there would be some bullet points for some of the specific highest priority projects that were outlined, more like things related specifically to access for buildings and facilities. So that one, I'm waiting to vet that with DPW staff.
Anything else there? Okay, goal 4.
There's 2 years.
Yep.
should be there.
I'd love to see a D in objective 1. Investigate the need for a assistant or associate conservation agent and land manager. That's something we've been discussing for a while. And it's much needed.
Can add that in as a recommendation.
Well, investigate the need and associated costs, much as these other ones do.
Mhm.
think we can justify the need for it. But it would have to be in there to be discussed as a priority along with everything else. Objective 2, I thought you were already planning to buy new permitting software. So how, is some of this done already?
It's a work in progress. I mean, we have permitting, but we are evaluating improvements, potentially other software.
Mhm.
We
That's
haven't
what I heard.
we haven't brought on the conservation permitting module yet.
Mhm.
Our goal is to have everything on one software platform, so.
That will help.
Is our technology person full-time now?
Yes.
Anything else on 2? Okay, 3? Okay, 4?
Oh, I'm sorry, Karen. I don't mean to take us backward. 3?
Uh-huh.
Do we need to, it talks about internal and external communications. Does there need to be an action related to community, outgoing communication to the community? I mean, I think we've been doing a great job of doing that. You know, Jackie's mail blasts and the website's been majorly improved. But there's nothing that talks about communicate with the people who live in the town.
Yeah, I
That's true.
think that was, so objective 1 was investigate the need for communication public info officer, but so I guess that's part of it,
Right.
but yeah, perhaps an action item.
Transparent and timely communication or something like that. Informative, transparent, timely. There seems to be some keywords.
Yeah, because we had talked about internal versus external communication and particularly communication with the community.
Mhm.
And
Could be a implement process to ensure timely, accurate information to the public on
Mhm.
town-related
Town-related
issues.
issues, yeah.
And maybe add to that, assess alternative venues for delivering such information.
So what was that? I missed it.
And investigate alternative venues for delivering town-wide information. Because right now, if you're not looking in a specific place, you don't necessarily find out something's going on until after it's done. So it would be nice to see a broader dissemination through other additional channels. Which will all be helped if we get a communications person.
Yes.
And also if that communications person could help committees get information out as well. And then anything else on 3? Okay, 4. So we are in fiscal year 2024, right?
Yes.
We're ending it, yes.
For 2
Yeah,
weeks.
so the timeline here doesn't necessarily make sense at all.
Under A, conduct all board and committee meetings to ensure alignment, efficiency, effectiveness across areas of responsibility. But then you only list 4 boards and committees. You really mean that to apply to everything, right?
Well, this only lists the regulatory boards.
Right?
But don't you really mean all?
And environment should say, I would think, Conservation Commission instead of environment.
Or take out those 4 and just leave it at,
Just leave it.
leave it
Yeah.
all town board
Yeah.
and committees. Yeah.
Right. But then but I think then we should add in, that right now we're supposed to have an annual meeting between regulatory boards, or at least between planning, health and Concom. And it would be nice to put that in the plan, because we don't have them. And it would be useful to have them.
So annual regulatory board meeting.
And yeah. An annual, right, meeting of all regulatory boards. And that could be a bullet point under this A. Even.
I'd make it a separate thing because it's kind of a different entity.
Well, it definitely ensures alignment, efficiency, and effectiveness.
That's true. That's true.
But A is also that there are town boards and committees that have related interests that should meet from time to time, so that everybody's not working in a silo, and we're doing more work together when that seems most appropriate. It doesn't seem quite reflected here. Even though the plan itself has a lot of cross-discipline stuff. It's not called out specifically. Item B is gonna be fun. Just from a committee viewpoint.
Yeah, that will be, know what's the right word to say, challenging, but I think doing that opens the door to getting the staffing that may be needed. Again, even going back to the public information piece, like even if we hire a full-time person, you know, addressing all those needs, unless we have a work plan
Mhm.
and allocate the time accordingly, and so.
Right, but how many committee meetings of a single committee will it take to develop that plan every single year? Maybe it's better to develop it biannually. Because it's gonna take a lot of time away from the main focus of the committee. Because it's not gonna get done in one meeting.
True.
I mean, I agree that it's important because staffing and budgeting and so on, and then making priorities clear to the community and to town staff is important. And I don't think that happens on a regular basis. But to put that together is a lot of time to do it annually.
Yeah, I mean, I guess depends what we want to define work plan. It could just
Mhm.
simply be what are the things, a list, what are the things we want to accomplish? And maybe we want to get an Instagram account established. We want to make sure we have a table at Windmill Weekend. I mean, a lot of these things might be simple, but those are the little things that add up, because it's like,
Mhm.
we need a banner for our table at town meeting. Well, we didn't budget for it, so we don't necessarily have $200 laying around. It's all these little things that add
Mhm.
up, but it's like if it's part of a work plan, we want to do these things.
Right.
Even that, I guess, just the listing of action, or
Mhm.
that would be helpful, because then
Yeah,
if it needs
maybe
staff assistance, then the staff knows, okay, we need to put something in the budget for this committee to do this, that. And it could be, like I said, simple equipment, or we need to hire a consultant to do some extensive work, whatever it may be.
that requires a lot of forethought for committees. And I guess it would get easier over time because perhaps there could be a template.
I was just
Right.
gonna say that. I wonder if that would be helpful to start.
A template
But-
it. And
and-
once you do it once,
Mhm,
then
you
each
can
year
work,
you're updating it. You're not starting from ground zero in white paper.
right.
And with
But the-
any luck, it could be based off of this plan and the subsequent work plan, so it all kind of fits together.
Mhm. Yeah, but not all of the committee work is in this plan. There's other smaller bits and things. Well, I'm just saying it'll be fun. Certainly to work on the first one.
Yes.
And I think it would help if this is gonna be what we're working on, if there was some written guidance to committees on how they might go about doing something like this. So we might add in development of template and guidance for committees to accomplish an
Yeah,
annual work
maybe
plan.
bullet point, develop template and guidance.
Because COMCOM could be all just throw some more money in the conservation fund and we'll take care of that part. Um, And we do have some financing otherwise from fees, but yeah, that's gonna be fun. Okay, so that is that. Is there anything, having looked at this again, that is missing? That we've discussed in the past that we thought should be included that isn't in the plan in this draft? Okay. So we'll say we've got I guess, Hope has some work to do.
Yes, yep, but this has been great. Thank you.
Okay, and we should move on. Yes. We've got 20 minutes left for the rest of the agenda. Select board presentation. Paul, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so, Hope and I were just talking about kind of next steps for communicating status. And just thought it made sense to have a check-in with the select board. So I did talk with Jackie. She agreed that would be a good idea. She's penciled in July 27th for that. So I guess the question would be, we can put together, and I was thinking this would be more just high level at this point, like
Mhm.
here's the new kind of formatting, and here's what we've changed, streamlined, and obviously give them a draft and such as it is at that point.
Mhm.
Is it just so we could put together a few slides. The question would be, who wants to do that presentation, and who wants to,
Okay,
Point
so,
out- I would just point out July 27th is Saturday,
oh,
29.
yeah, I think I must have meant the 29th. So I guess I'll say by default, I'm willing to, do that presentation, but I didn't want to, if anyone else wants to do it or co-present, however, I'm
it-
open to
probably,
anything.
it'd probably be good to have a committee member with, so,
With, I was gonna say, I would, in whatever role I'm in, I would like to be there to hear the discussion, because I think that will be helpful.
but maybe you should co-present with Paul.
It's
You've
fine.
worked
Fine with
on
me.
it, you're the vice chair, so that seems to make some sense.
So that's fine. So Hope and I can put together the slides, and we'll email them out to the group before the meeting just to get any feedback on content. And we'll
Mhm.
plan on that presentation. And then we had talked about scheduling time on at least for the regulatory boards to do a similar thing.
Mhm.
Status update, check in, get feedback. So just, again, Karen wanted to check in with you on, just, we don't need to nail this down now, but we just didn't know a date,
Well-
conscom that would
Well-
work.
Yeah, I talked to Alex and we think any date in July or August would be fine. There's no way of estimating what our agenda is going to be this far in advance. I do know that, yeah. So any date in July or August is fine.
Right. Why don't we just shoot for
So,
August?
okay, so August 13th maybe?
Okay.
That's our first meeting. Otherwise, it's August 27th.
I'll just put both just as a backup. 27.
Okay.
So again, this would all just be, gathering feedback, input. And we had discussed doing some sort of public presentation, public opportunity for input, public comment. So we just sketched out having some sort of info session at the library the second week of August. You know, in the evening, early evening. And then having a public comment. So once we get the draft, we could post that online for just general public comment through September. And then we were looking to kind of have this thing buttoned up at the end of September, get on a select board meeting at the end of September for, final presentation and endorsement.
That sounds about right. So just going back to board presentations, do we maybe want to include the zoning task force in there, this, and perhaps the climate committee? And do we want to include housing?
I guess it just depends on whether you want to go past the regulatory boards and then start including all the others that are impacted.
Right, that's what I'm,
Yeah.
or the major ones that are impacted. I'm just throwing that out there for discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of on this, I defer to what the committee thinks is best to do.
So this is a draft plan that we would be presenting?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yep, and just like an update on, reminder that we have the strategic plan and we've updating it and here's what it is and
Right.
then opportunity for any feedback.
I think it's a good idea. Zoning, housing, you got health. Climate Action Committee.
I'm wondering if we could do zoning and zoning task force together.
They don't usually meet together.
I understand.
The,
That just becomes a scheduling issue.
Mhm.
And Paul goes to both.
Right.
Lucky Paul.
the task force isn't gonna meet until September, but
Ah,
there's still, I mean, that still works technically.
okay.
All right, well, I guess those we can focus on those three and then see how it plays out. If there's other groups, then we'll figure it out.
Would it be worth doing something in the fall with the CPC committee? Maybe that happens when we do in October when well, I'm rethinking what I'm saying. We just did that as part of the 5-year plan. I don't think we need to repeat it again.
You're saying we should give a presentation to
I don't
CPA?
think, I'm changing my mind. I don't think it's necessary because we just went over it as part of the development of the new 5-year plan.
Okay.
What about the Recreation Commission?
Probably.
Well, I think we definitely got the regulatory boards nailed down. I think these other ones, I think it's good to do that. It'll just gonna be a question of timing and just, availability and trying to,
Mhm.
so if we can,
Right.
if we can make it happen.
And it can
Try
be,
to.
But maybe we could do it by sharing with them the PowerPoint for the select board and a draft of the,
Keep it short.
Yes.
yeah, as not necessarily a presentation, but sharing it with the committees and asking them.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
To
Well, that's
provide
certainly
feedback as opposed to doing a
doing
presentation.
a president. Yeah, well, that, yeah, definitely. That's doable.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm always trying to figure out how to reduce staff time.
Mhm. That's, I appreciate that.
Concom's been working on that a bit lately. So I think that takes us to meeting minutes, which I don't think we have. And any other business that anybody wants to bring? Okay, next meeting date, sticking to our second Tuesday, would be July 10th. And our August meeting would be August 14th. That still work for everybody?
You said Tuesday, it's Wednesday, right?
Oh, Wednesday, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had too many meetings this week. And I default to Tuesdays. Cause
So it's
Concom
July 10 and August
and
17th?
August, I think it was 14th. Let me
14th.
just double
Okay.
check.
It is.
August 14th, yeah.
Okay.
Everybody still good with that?
Hmm.
Okay,
I'm not good with just FYI, the 14th of August. Sorry. I could maybe dial in. I'll be away, but
Enjoy your
And I'll-
vacation.
I will, I'll let everyone know. I gotta look at the availability for the library for that public session on August, so.
right. We can reschedule if necessary for August. I just wanted to put the date out.
Okay.
So everybody's reminded. We can talk about it again in July, of course.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, and then just Roy and Hope and my terms are up on June 30th, and Concom reappointed me last night. I think Roy is going to have the finance committee schedule that for him.
Mhm. Yeah, I've already
And-
talked to Mary Shaw about it.
Yeah, and I didn't get an answer to my email, Hope, so I don't know. Have you,
oh, somebody reached out and I don't,
from the town clerk,
yeah, and I did say yes.
Kendra, okay,
Kendra, yes, I did say yes, but I didn't hear anything after that, so I don't know what the process is.
so you were appointed by the select board
Yeah.
instead of the Board of Health, so I would bet that's gonna be at their next meeting. That's when they're scheduled a bunch of reappointments,
Okay, okay,
but I can check
okay.
and make sure.
Well, let me know if I should be doing something proactively. But I did respond to Kendra, sorry, I apologize. Yep.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure so that we have a quorum for our next meeting.
Yep.
As we're such a small group. Okay. Anything else, or is it safe to ask somebody to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
And is there a
I'll
second?
second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks,